Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
Dalton drags Rocco into the PCU theater, demanding that the boy be arrested for breaking into his lab. Laura orders Dalton to take his hands off the boy, who's a minor, while Ezra is each too happy to go find the police. Dalton explains that Rocco broke into his secure lab, but Laura suggests that maybe the door was open and he didn't know where he was. Dalton says there are signs posted that read authorized personnel only. Ezra brings the bobbies, and Laura tries to defuse the situation, as nothing was broken or damaged, so she's willing to look the other way, given that Dalton manhandled her grandson. Ezra suggests that if the crucial fob is on Rocco, also the boy knew what he was doing. Of course, Rocco hands over the crucial fob, and the police are forced to arrest him. Laura tells him it'll be okay and not to say another word, and she leaves the debate to accompany him to the station. Compromising situations. At the PCPD, Nathan sits at his old office, not apprehensive he's in Chase's seat until he sees the prince. Chase arrives, and Nathan and Chase introduce themselves. Chase brings him up on their current high-profile case, Judge Heron's murder. They're both compromised as Willow is involved. As the boggled judge ruled over her guardianship case, Molly drops by her mama's office and tells her that she wouldn't be going up against her in court in Willow's case, as Turner wants all the glory. Alexis knows this would have been a high-profile case for her, but Molly is glad, as they've had enough bouleversement in their family over the once time. At Bobby's, Danny and Charlotte inform Jason and Britt that Rocco was caught in Professor Dalton's lab, which they had broken into. Charlotte needs to tell her mama, so Britt drives her to the sanitarium. Danny also explains what happened to his pater. And Jason asks whose idea this was. Did he get Rocco into this? Jason and Danny head to Alexis' office and tell her about what went down. Danny prodigies if turning himself in will make this better for Rocco, but Alexis says it'll only make effects worse, and Drew will have what he needs to put Danny in captivity. News of Rocco's arrest spreads. At the sanitarium, Dante arrives and is streamlined about what happened with Ned by Lulu. Emma pipes in about Joe's heroics, and Dante tells him how proud he's of him. Emma and Gio walk off to get a drink, when Gio remembers tonight was their pinch. Emma says they'll figure commodity out, as Ned is way more important. Lulu asks Dante how his new job is, and he says he's handling it well and got to rehire Nathan. Suddenly, Charlotte arrives and fills Dante and Lulu in on Rocco's situation. Meanwhile, Britt slinks off and calls someone, telling them they need to get to GH. She also digs through her bag, finds her crucial fob missing, and realizes Rocco and Charlotte stole it when she asked them to go find her bag. Latterly, Sidwell arrives to meet Britt in an empty room, and she tells him that Dalton is trying to arrest her son. She wants Sidwell to have Dalton drop the charges. She reminds him that, unlike Dalton, she's been pious to him. Away, Gio and Emma have heard the news and fear, and Emma realizes that involving the others was wrong. Gio has an idea, takes her hand, and they leave. Will Rocco really go to jail? Dante, Charlotte and Lulu head to the PCPD just as Rocco and Laura arrive. Rocco is taken into the interrogation room, and Lulu goes with him as he's a minor. The professor made a statement and returned to the lab, and Dante thanked Laura for staying with Rocco. Dante and Laura talk in private about what happened, as Nathan uncuffs Rocco and leaves him alone in the interrogation room to speak with Lulu. Lulu formally knows that Charlotte and Danny were involved and got down, and Rocco tells his mama what happened with Dalton and the lab. Lulu tells her son this is bad, as what he did reflects on his father and grandmother. Back in the station, Britt appears, and Nathan says she needs to leave. Meanwhile, Dante and Laura continue to bandy the break heft and its implicit impact on Laura's crusade. Her only concern is Rocco. Can Sonny and Rick find peace? Rick drops by Sonny's to offer his services as his counsel in the Measure C business. Sonny formerly has Diane, but Rick explains Diane is compromised right now, given she's connected to Alexis, and Sidwell's son works for them. Rick says there's an important reason they should work together, as he doesn't want their bad blood to strain Molly and Christina's relationship. Rick is prepared to prove he can be precious, as he believes he can make a case against prestigious Sphere and keep Sonny's peers. Sonny wants to believe him, and Rick says he wants to be done with the hate. Rick asks him to suppose about putting the history behind them, and heads out. Latterly, Gio and Emma arrive, and Gio explains that Rocco is in trouble and it's because of them. They tell Sonny the whole story, including Emma's history with Dalton across city. Rick meets up with Molly at Bobby's, where she's invested in working on her novel. He sits down with her, and she explains that Cody's deliverance of her father inspired her to take the book in a new direction, in the show's final moments. At the station, Dante tells Chase that his son will be charged with a misdemeanor, so he doesn't need to be held overnight. Meanwhile, Britt tells Nathan she just wants to make sure Rocco is okay. Rocco is brought out, and Dante tells his son he's being released into their guardianship and must be at the courthouse first thing. Dante walks off, and Lulu explains to her son that Dad has to be the manager right now. Rocco realizes how poorly he meddled up. Rocco sees his grandma and Charlotte there, and Charlotte tells him that he didn't have to immolate himself. Rocco insists he did. Rocco apologizes to his grandma, but her only concern is her grandson. She says they'll all get through this. At Sonny's, Gio asks if going to the Bobbies will help, but Sonny says giving the police information isn't a smart move. Also, unlike Rocco, they're grown-ups, so the consequences would be worse for them. Sonny says Rocco's fate is in the hands of the attorneys right now. At Bobby's, Rick gets a call from Sonny, who tells him he has a way for him to prove himself. In Alexa's office, Jason tells his son that Rocco chose to cover him and Charlotte, so admire that choice. Still, he wants to know where the crucial fob came from. Back at the station, Lulu is walking out with Rocco and the others and is shocked to see Britt there. Britt says she just wanted to make sure Rocco was right, and insists that everything will be okay. Eventually, at the sanitarium, Sidwell scolds Dalton for his negligence, and tells him to drop the charges as they don't need police attention on the lab. Dalton refuses and is going to make sure Rocco pays for Laura demeaning him. The polished, imposing doors of the Port Charles University auditorium were meant to signify academic prestige and sober intellectual debate. They were not designed to be burst open by a storm of paternal fury and adolescent terror. Yet, that is precisely what happened as Professor Craig Dalton, his face a mask of crimson outrage, forcibly dragged a struggling Rocco Falconeri into the cavernous space. "I want this boy arrested. Now." Dalton's voice, usually reserved for lecturing on quantum mechanics or biochemical formulas, echoed with a raw, vengeful power. His grip on Rocco's jacket was white-knuckled, a claim of ownership over a perceived criminal. The political rally for Laura Collins' mayoral campaign ground to an instantaneous halt. All eyes turned to the shocking spectacle. From the podium, Laura's mayoral smile vanished, replaced by the fierce protectiveness of a grandmother and a leader. "Professor Dalton, unhand that child this instant," she commanded, her voice cutting through the murmuring crowd with an authority that brooked no argument. "He is a minor. Whatever you believe he has done, manhandling him is not the solution." From the sidelines, Laura's campaign manager, Ezra, watched the scene unfold not with concern, but with the calculating gleam of a strategist who sees a potential public relations grenade being lobbed into their carefully constructed arena. A slow, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. "I'll go find the police," he offered, his tone dripping with false concern as he slipped away, eager to pour gasoline on the burgeoning fire. "He broke into my secure laboratory." Dalton spat, finally releasing Rocco, who stumbled back, rubbing his arm. The boy's face was pale, a mixture of fear and stubborn defiance. "A highly sensitive, classified environment." Laura descended from the podium, placing herself physically between the enraged academic and her grandson. Her posture was a shield. "Perhaps the door was open," she suggested, her tone deliberately calm, aiming to de-escalate. "Perhaps he was lost and wandered in without realizing the sanctity of the space. There are signs. Authorized personnel only." Dalton shot back, his dignity wounded as much as his security had been. He felt the eyes of the university board members and his peers upon him, and Laura's public challenge was a humiliation he would not abide. Ezra returned with commendable speed, 2 uniformed officers in tow. The situation was now officially a legal matter, not a familial one. Laura, ever the diplomat, tried one last time to pour water on the flames. Officers, as you can see, nothing was broken, nothing was damaged. This is a misunderstanding. I am willing to look the other way, especially considering the professor here felt it appropriate to physically assault a minor. It was a masterful pivot, reframing the narrative from break-in to assault. But Ezra, ever the serpent, saw his opportunity. A fair point, Laura, he said, his voice syrupy with false reason. But if the boy has a key fob, a device specifically designed to bypass that secure lock, then it suggests intent, doesn't it? It suggests he knew exactly what he was doing. The trap was set. All eyes turned to Rocco. The boy, caught in the crossfire of adult agendas and his own misguided loyalty, hesitated for only a second. With a look of utter defeat, he reached into his pocket and produced the small, plastic key fob. It was a damning piece of evidence, a physical admission of guilt that transformed him from a confused kid into a calculated intruder in the eyes of the law. The officers had no choice. As one stepped forward to formally place Rocco under arrest, Laura surged forward, grabbing her grandson's face in her hands. Her eyes, filled with a storm of fear and unwavering love, locked with his. "It's going to be okay," she whispered, the words a fierce promise. "Do not say another word to anyone. Not a word." The debate, the campaign, the entire political future of Port Charles vanished from her mind. As the officers led Rocco away, Laura Collins, the mayoral candidate, fell in step beside Laura Spencer, the grandmother, leaving the stunned auditorium behind. Compromising situations. The Port Charles Police Department hummed with its usual low-grade chaos, a symphony of ringing phones, murmured conversations, and the clatter of keyboards. Nathan West, feeling a familiar yet strange sense of homecoming, settled into a worn chair at a detective's desk. It wasn't until he noticed the framed photographs, a smiling Lulu, a young Rocco, that he realized with a jolt that he was sitting in his brother-in-law's seat. The desk of Commissioner Dante Falconeri. As if summoned by the thought, Dante appeared, his expression a complex blend of professional welcome and personal history. "Nathan," he said, extending a hand. "Commissioner," Nathan replied, standing and shaking it firmly. "Good to be back." "Let's get you up to speed," Dante said, gesturing for Nathan to follow him to a caseboard. The central photograph was of the Honorable Judge Walter Heron. Our highest profile case. The murder of Judge Heron. Nathan's stomach tightened. He knew this case, and he knew its complications. "Willow Tate," he stated flatly. Dante nodded, his jaw tight. "Exactly. The judge who presided over her custody case with Michael Corinthos. Which means both you, given your personal connection to Willow, and I, given my family's ties to Michael, are potentially compromised on this investigation. We have to tread very, very carefully." Across town, in the sleek offices of Davis and Associates, another set of compromises was being negotiated. Molly Lansing Davis entered her mother's office, her expression a mixture of apology and relief. "Mom, I have to tell you something. Turner is taking the lead on representing Shiloh in the custody appeal for Willow's baby. He's pulling me off the case." Alexis Davis looked up from her legal pad, a flicker of professional disappointment in her eyes. She knew a case of this magnitude could have re-established her reputation in the legal community. "I see. He wants all the glory for himself." Basically, Molly admitted, sinking into a chair. "But honestly? I'm glad. After everything our family has been through this past year, the lies, the secrets, the danger, the last thing I need is to be fighting my own mother in a courtroom. We've had enough upheaval." Alexis offered a soft, understanding smile. The bond of family, so often fractured in Port Charles, was, in this moment, more important than any professional victory. The news of the afternoon's drama, meanwhile, was spreading through the city's informal grapevine. At Bobby's, the classic coffee shop that served as the town's central nervous system, Danny Morgan and Charlotte Cassadine found Jason Morgan and Britt Westbourne, their faces etched with panic. "It's Rocco." Danny blurted out, his voice trembling. He got caught. In Professor Dalton's lab. The story tumbled out in a rushed, guilty confession. The plan to expose Dalton, the break-in, the narrow escape, except for Rocco, who had been cornered. Charlotte, on the verge of tears, insisted she had to tell her mother. Britt, her own mind racing, offered to drive the distraught girl to General Hospital, a gesture that masked her own growing sense of dread. Once they were gone, Danny was left to face his father. Jason Morgan's gaze was like granite. Whose idea was this, Danny? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Did you get Rocco into this? Under that intense scrutiny, Danny confessed everything. The need for justice for their friend Emma, the heist they had planned. Jason listened, his expression unreadable, before deciding action was required. He and Danny headed straight for Alexis's office, interrupting her conversation with Molly. As Danny explained the situation to a horrified Alexis, he voiced the thought tormenting him. If I turn myself in, if I tell them it was my idea, will that make it better for Rocco? Alexis was immediately, vehemently, opposed. No, Danny. It will only make things worse. You'd be admitting to conspiracy and burglary. Drew would have everything he needs to send you to a juvenile detention center, or worse. You cannot say a word. News of Rocco's arrest spreads. At General Hospital, the drama of the Quartermaine mansion had shifted location but not intensity. Dante had arrived, seeking an update on his Uncle Ned's condition. Lulu, looking drained, filled him in on the latest prognosis. Nearby, Emma Drake and Gio Falconeri stood slightly apart, the weight of their secret mission heavy on their shoulders. Emma piped up, praising Joe's quick thinking in performing CPR on Ned. Dante turned to the young man, placing a hand on his shoulder. You did good, Gio. I'm proud of you. As Emma and Gio walked away to get a drink, the reality of their situation crashed down on them. Tonight was the heist, Gio remembered, his voice hollow. It doesn't matter, Emma said firmly, her compassion overriding her thirst for vengeance. Ned is way more important. We'll figure something out later. Lulu, meanwhile, tried to focus on something other than her comatose uncle. How's the new job? She asked Dante. It's a lot, he admitted. But I'm handling it. Actually, one of my first acts was to rehire Nathan. He's a good detective. We need him. Their moment of normalcy was shattered by the arrival of Charlotte, who rushed in, her words tumbling over each other as she delivered the news about Rocco. As Dante and Lulu processed this new crisis, a silent drama played out in the corner. Britt Westbourne, having heard Charlotte's story, slunk away from the group. A cold realization was dawning on her. She dug frantically through her purse. Her key fob, the one that granted access to the GH research labs, the one she'd let the kids fetch from this very purse, was gone. They hadn't just found her purse, they had pickpocketed her. The tool used to break into Dalton's lab had come from her. Panic, cold and sharp, seized her. She pulled out her phone and made a hurried, hushed call. We need to talk. Now. At GH. Later, in a deserted hospital conference room, she faced the man she had summoned, the powerful, enigmatic chief of staff, Damon Sidwell. It's Dalton, Britt hissed, her voice low and urgent. He's having a child arrested. My son, for all intents and purposes. You need to make him drop the charges. Sidwell's expression was impassive, but his eyes were calculating. Britt pressed her advantage, her voice dropping to a whisper. Remember, unlike the good professor, I have been loyal to you. Now, I need you to be loyal to me. Make this go away. Elsewhere in the hospital, the news had also reached Emma and Gio. Their panic was of a different, more guilt-ridden kind. This is our fault, Emma whispered, her eyes wide with horror. We involved them. Rocco is going to jail because of us. But where Emma saw a dead end, Gio saw a potential path. A dangerous, reckless path, but a path nonetheless. He took her hand, his expression shifting from despair to determination. I have an idea, he said, and led her away into the labyrinthine halls of the hospital. Will Rocco really go to jail? The PCPD felt smaller and more intimidating to Rocco on his second arrival, this time in the back of a squad car. Dante, Lulu, and Charlotte were already there, having raced from the hospital. Laura stood by her grandson's side, a pillar of quiet strength as he was led into an interrogation room. Because he was a minor, Lulu was permitted to accompany him. Nathan, following procedure, uncuffed the boy and left him alone with his mother. The gesture was small, but it spoke volumes about the department's humanity under Dante's command. Thank you for staying with him, Laura, Dante said to his mother-in-law once the door was closed. Laura's gaze was steady, though worry clouded her eyes. He's my grandson. There's nowhere else I would be. In the hallway, they spoke in hushed, urgent tones. Dante, wearing his commissioner's hat, outlined the facts. Dalton gave his statement and left. He's insisting on pressing charges. It's a misdemeanor, but it's a serious one. The political fallout for you. Laura cut him off with a wave of her hand. My only concern is Rocco. The campaign can burn for all I care. He's what matters. Inside the interrogation room, Lulu faced her son. I already know Charlotte and Danny were with you, she said, her voice firm but not unkind. And I know they got away. Now, I need you to tell me everything that happened. Rocco recounted the story, the plan, the key fob, the lab, and Dalton's furious confrontation. Lulu listened, her heart breaking as she explained the gravity of his actions. Rocco, this isn't just about you. What you did reflects on your father, the police commissioner. It reflects on your grandmother, the mayor. You have to understand the position you've put them in. Back in the bullpen, a new complication arrived. Britt Westbourne, her face a mask of maternal anxiety, tried to enter the secured area. Nathan stepped in her path. I'm sorry, Britt, you can't be back here. I just want to make sure he's okay, she pleaded, her eyes searching for any sign of Rocco. Can Sonny and Rick find peace? While the legal system churned for the younger generation, a different kind of negotiation was taking place at Sonny Corinthos' waterfront penthouse. The arrival of Rick Lansing was always a harbinger of complicated alliances and troubled history. Sonny, Rick began, adopting his most professional demeanor. I'm here to offer my services. Regarding the city's attempt to seize your peers through Measure C. Sonny, leaning against his desk, was unmoved. I have Diane, he stated simply. Diane Miller was the best defense attorney in the state, and she was fiercely loyal. Diane is compromised, Rick countered smoothly. She's connected to Alexis, whose firm now employs Christian Sidwell, the son of the man pushing Measure C. It's a conflict of interest, or at least it can be made to look like one. He paused, letting the point land. But there's a more important reason we should consider working together. Molly and Christina. Our daughters are sisters. Their relationship shouldn't be strained by the old hatred between us. He laid out his plan, a legal argument against the city's use of eminent domain that was, Sonny had to admit, clever and aggressive. I believe I can make a case that will not only stop them but embarrass Sidwell in the process. I can help you keep your peers. Sonny studied the man who had been his brother, his enemy, and his rival in so many painful chapters of his life. You expect me to believe you want to help me out of the goodness of your heart? I want to be done with the hate, Sonny, Rick said, and for a fleeting moment, the words sounded genuine. I'm asking you to think about it. To think about putting the past behind us. With that, he took his leave. Later, the quiet of the penthouse was broken by the arrival of Gio and Emma. They found Sonny staring out at the harbor, his mind on business and family. Gio, usually so confident, was visibly shaken. Mr. Corinthos, we need your help. Rocco is in trouble, and it's because of us. They told him the whole story, Emma's academic persecution by Dalton, the planned heist to expose him, and how Rocco had taken the fall. Sonny listened, his expression growing grimmer with each detail. Should we go to the police? Tell them it was our idea? Gio asked, desperation in his voice. No, Sonny said, his tone final. Giving the police information is rarely a smart move. And unlike Rocco, you two are adults. The consequences for you would be far more severe. Prison, not juvie. He turned from the window, his gaze encompassing them both. Rocco's fate is in the hands of the lawyers now. Meanwhile, at Bobby's, Rick had found Molly, who was deeply engrossed in her laptop, the chaos of the day fueling her creative process. You seem inspired, he noted, sitting across from her. I am, she said, looking up with a bright smile. Cody Bell's heroism, saving Dad from that fire, it's given me a whole new direction for my novel. It's all about redemption and unexpected courage. As they spoke, Rick's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and saw it was Sonny. A slow smile spread across his face. He had gotten his foot in the door. In the show's final moments back at the PCPD, the gears of justice turned, for now, in Rocco's favor. Dante conferred with Chase. It's a misdemeanor. We don't need to hold him overnight. He can be released into parental custody with a promise to appear. The interrogation room door opened, and a pale, chastened Rocco emerged with Lulu. Dante approached his son, his official demeanor softening only slightly. You're being released into our custody. But first thing in the morning, you will be at the courthouse. Do you understand? Rocco nodded, unable to meet his father's eyes. As Dante walked away to finalize the paperwork, Lulu put an arm around her son. He has to be the commissioner right now, honey. It's not easy for him. I messed up, Mom, Rocco whispered, the full weight of his actions finally crushing his adolescent bravado. I'm so sorry. He saw his grandmother Laura and Charlotte waiting for him. Charlotte rushed forward. Rocco, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to take the fall for us. Yes, I did, he insisted, his voice gaining a sliver of its old strength. He then turned to Laura. Grandma, I'm so sorry. About your debate, about everything. Laura pulled him into a fierce hug. The only thing that matters is you, she repeated, her voice thick with emotion. We are a family. We will all get through this. Together. As Lulu prepared to lead her son out of the station, she stopped short, her face hardening at the sight of Britt Westbourne lingering near the exit. What are you doing here? Lulu asked, her tone icy. I just wanted to make sure Rocco was all right, Britt said, her gaze sincere. She looked at Rocco, then back at Lulu. Everything is going to be okay. It was a promise, and one she seemed determined to keep, through whatever means necessary. Finally, in a quiet, sterile office at General Hospital, the true source of the conflict was being addressed. Damon Sidwell faced a still fuming Craig Dalton. This was a monumental error in judgment, Craig, Sidwell said, his voice like chilled steel. Your negligence allowed a child to access a secure area. We do not need this kind of police attention on our lab. You will drop the charges. But Dalton's pride had been wounded too deeply. Laura Collins had humiliated him in front of the entire city elite. This was no longer about security, it was about vengeance. No, Dalton refused, his eyes burning with resentment. I don't care about the lab right now. That boy is going to pay. And through him, so is his grandmother. The battle lines were drawn, not in a lab or a courtroom, but in the wounded hearts of Port Charles's most powerful players. The baptism by fire was over, but the war had just begun.